Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with authentic, heart-centered experts about interesting topics to spark, inspire, and motivate both personal and professional change. This conversation today is worth your while because we now have a large body of brain research, which gives us a better understanding that each of us can actually create change that ripples in the world. Everything starts in our mind, our feelings, our words, our actions, and who we are. Words have the power of creation, but our default thinking keeps us in the same place. So if you aspire to be happier and to make an impact, to make a ripple, you're going to love to learn about how you can use language to do so. I'm Linda Bucher, a speaker and a master certified life coach. And after living the life of a chameleon and feeling like a victim for 45 years, I finally discovered who I am. I connected with my passion and my purpose, and I reinvented my life to align with my true self. And I have become a happier, more confident, and more fulfilled person because of it. But most importantly, this transformation has resulted in me unleashing my gifts to the world. And my mission is to help you do the same in your life, because you have important gifts to give to the world. You have a splash to make, and you can't do that until you become clear on your purpose, harness your gifts, and align your energy and direction, and free yourself from those obstacles that want to hold you back. So if you'd like to talk about getting you out of your own way and back into alignment, schedule a free 20-minute clarity session with me at https makeasplash.youcanbook.me. But today, let's move on with the show. I have the pleasure of being joined by Kimberly Wilkerson, founder and owner of Token Clothing Company. And Kimberly is making ripples in a really unique way. She helps women to improve their mindset and understand who they are through the fusion of beautiful apparel and powerful language. So, Kimberly, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So would you tell our audience a little bit more about who you do, what you do, who you serve, and basically how you are making these beautiful, positive ripples in the world?
I would love to. So, as you mentioned, I have a clothing company, and I also am a speech language pathologist. So, I have 15 years of experience as a clinician and studying language and the positive psychology that really overlaps some of that language. And I had a desire, even in graduate school, to have a fashion company at some point. And so I'm so glad that I had this journey of being a speech language pathologist and understanding more about the power of communication before I ever launched Token Clothing Company. And I determined that I wanted to, as you say, make ripples, make an impact in the world through that merging of language, knowing what language can do for us, as well, again, as beautiful fashion. And so we launched a year ago. Our first line is Pajamas with Purpose, which actually puts powerful affirmations and I am statements on the interior side of the fabric, which I'll get to why we did that in a little bit. But it is a company whose niche is how can we wear intelligent fashion? How can we actually wear fashion that's beautiful, that's comfortable, but allows us to improve our mindset and empower us to reach our potential? And so that's what this company is about. And that's what I'm about, really, is helping women and others reach their full potential and understand who they can become.
That's so beautiful. I love that so many of us are doing this beautiful work and helping people to discover who they are and just how powerful they are. And there's so many different ways to do it. And I think the more different ways that we're practicing this, the more we truly get to know our worth, because that's something that I'm doing. Every time I work with a client, I'm just like, I am helping you to know your worth so that you can do anything, be anything, and make big ripples in the world. So there's a lot of this beautiful worthiness language. I checked out your pajamas. They're very cool. And I absolutely love what you're doing and how you're doing it, because there's so many creative ways to do the same thing. So today we are talking really about how to change your life through language. Because we have this default language, right? How we talk to ourselves. A lot of times we would never talk to other people the way that we talk to ourselves. There's so much negativity. And I think we're not all really all that aware of what we're saying. But sometimes it slips and, you say it out loud, like, oh, well, that was stupid. Like we're just being really mean to ourselves sometimes. So I'd love if you would share a little bit more about, I know you have your own personal story about discovering this default language that we all seem to have when we speak to ourselves, and we're not even aware it's there, but you did something to make yourself very aware, and I'd love if you would share that with us, Kimberly.
Absolutely. So this was some years ago, actually several years ago, probably now. I was working with a life coach just to improve myself. And of course, I was a speech language pathologist, so I loved doing everything that I could with language and communication. But I took the task of paying attention to my 100 thoughts. I think it was over the course perhaps of 24 hours, right? Maybe 24 to 48, where I had a journal. And I was in a situation with work where I could jot down those thoughts. And whether they were positive, negative, in between, I just wrote down every thought that came to mind that wasn't directly perhaps related to a business task, but just those thoughts that streamed through our minds really without us being aware. And then I took those 100 thoughts and I actually grouped them into sections of, okay, is this positive? Is this more neutral? Is this negative? What is this about? Is this an I am statement that I said to myself? Is this about someone else? And lots of negative thoughts, right? Because we really do have that default, unfortunately, of heading to negative unless we create change, unless we purposely create change. So I went through all of those negative thoughts and I wrote the opposite. Now I threw away this journal, so I can't tell you what those negative thoughts were, but I can give you an example. For example, if I said, man, I look horrible today, or I'm ugly, then I would have changed that thought to, I am beautiful. If I felt like I was being a failure or not enough, I would have changed that thought to, I am confident. And what's interesting, Linda, is I then took those statements, I recorded me saying those positive statements. I put it on an app that has beautiful music. Now that's changed. Some of those statements have changed over the years, but I still listen to those statements. In fact, this morning, as I was getting ready, I was listening to those statements because I want those powerful, true affirmations inside my mind.
That's beautiful. These positive, true affirmations. I just want to briefly talk about, I've read a lot about affirmations. You see them planted all over the internet, right? And mostly people are putting them out there because it's something they are learning, right? We're like, oh, this is meaningful to me. I want to throw this out on the internet so it can, because it might be meaningful to others. So that's like our first introduction to affirmations. But I remember, this is a fun little story. I was just starting life coach school. I quit my big 6-figure a year job. I was 45 years old. I was a widow with 3 small children. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I'm like, I'm going to be a life coach because I'm supposed to be. It was like an epiphany. Right? So I had just quit my job, and I bought a book for a very good friend of mine. And the book is called She. It's by Kobe Yamada. And it's filled with these beautiful, positive affirmations and things to celebrate about a woman. And I highly recommend this book. It's basically one sentence on each page. So you can read it really fast, but it's really more about absorbing it. And I was showing somebody this book, and they said, well, I was telling somebody about it. And I said, oh, I bought this for my friend. My other friend said, oh, she already has that book. I'm like, oh, she's like, well, you should keep it for you. And I remember I had read it maybe 6 months before, and or maybe a year before when I had bought it. And I remember thinking, but this doesn't describe me. All these positive affirmations, that's not about me. That's about her. And it wasn't just that, it made me so sad that I didn't know these things about myself, that I was like, that's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true. And it's because I had all this default thinking of the other way. So then fast forward, I just started life coach school, and I was showing somebody this book. And it says beautiful things like, one day she woke up and threw away all her excuses. She loved life and it loved her right back. Like it was such beautiful, beautiful affirmations. And after each affirmation is something to celebrate. One day when she woke up and threw away all her excuses, like something about celebrate her resiliency, celebrate, like all these pieces. And I finished the book and I was like, oh my God, I'm she. I was like, oh. And so I was just remodeling my bedroom at the time because I was discovering who I am. And you and I are going to talk about this discovery piece that happens with this. And this is my short little story about this is I decided in that bedroom to write in my own imperfect handwriting from ceiling to floor, wall to wall, the contents of that book. I wrote every positive declaration, and I say declaration, not affirmation, because I was declaring it. I wasn't like, oh, it's, this is a true thing, and I want to believe it, but I don't really believe it. That's what was happening when I thought of them as affirmations. But I was making them a declaration. I was declaring, totally declaring, and my headboard was behind me, and then I would wake up and I'd see this wall in front of me. It was a huge wall, all my own handwriting. It was not perfect, which is good because I'm not perfect. It was really about who am I, and I am declaring this is who I am. So these words being right at me, I could read them anytime, and it's just a beautiful declaration. And that's what your pajamas are doing. They're declaring to women, this is the truth. This is you. So it's so beautiful.
I love that experience. I absolutely love that. Thank you. That's fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about this default negative thinking. What happens in the brain and body when we're focusing on these negative thoughts?
Sure. So I think one of the first things that's really interesting, again, is just to be aware of what research can tell us, right? There was a study not too long ago at Queen University in Canada, and it looked at thoughts and what we call thought worms, where thoughts might be connected together. And when they did this research, they found that about 80% of our thinking each day is negative.
Oh my goodness.
That's how much default negativity we have going on in our mind. And also, so here's another interesting piece with that, is that about 95% of our thoughts are repeating day after day, right? I mean, we might be learning something new at work. We might meet someone new, but again, through this research, they said, okay, so think about that. So if the same thoughts are repeating day after day, 95% and 80% of them are typically negative, right? There's what's happening in our brain, that default thinking that's coming to us, which requires then that we make a change. Another piece of research that is interesting is just one single word. This is the power of one single word. If you were to write down the word, if you saw it posted, the word no with an exclamation point, and then maybe some other no's behind it. If you were in an MRI machine that was doing a functional MRI, we would see within a second your amygdala, which is kind of in the center of your brain, that start to send out stress hormones. It would become very activated. It would send out stress hormones to your body, kind of getting you in that position for fight or flight, right? No one wants to be told no. When we think about just our conversations that we have, if we want to do something and someone says no to us, but that's actually what's happening at the level of your brain with one single word. Now we see this too, this type of brain response with other negative words. We also know that you don't even have to be the one saying that word. If you are watching something action that is violent, if you are listening to a seething argument, right? Your brain will respond in the same way as if you were saying those words or thinking those words. So again, the power of language is immense, and we have to be careful about not just what we're saying, but what we're taking in and hearing and seeing in our environment. Now let's talk about that positivity piece, right, of language, because that's equally important. So when we have positive words, for example, peace, gratitude, love, what we see in the brain typically is that those areas of activation with the negative words are calm and still. It's not that we see activation of another area that is significant, although there is some research that shows that you're making connections to different areas of the brain, but we have calmness so our brain can function normally, so we can learn. So those structures in our brain that help with memory can work appropriately. which is what we want. We want to have a clear, keen, sensitive mind as we interact with people and as we go about our day to achieve the goals that we have. And so that's the power of positive language. So when you think about all of this default negativity, right? If we can reframe that and change that to keep our brain functioning in a calm state, then we're able to perform an act with a lot more precision and certainly a lot more joy.
Most definitely. Yeah. So I love to do a couple things. One is to make some word substitutions. And then another thing is these I am statements. So I'm going to talk about some word substitutions, and then I'd like you and I to talk together about some I am statements and a little bit more about that. Okay. So I have some, keynotes and presentations out there. And one of my favorites was called the language of freedom. So what I noticed when I had quit that big job and to become a life coach, all the discomfort, there was 9 years of it leading up to that. It was like a really crazy time where I was like, I am so not living the life I'm meant to be living, and I don't know what it is. One of the things I discovered about myself is really what are my highest values? And my highest values at the time, and still they're pretty high values, were freedom, fulfillment, and life balance. Oh, and ease. That was a big one because life had been very hard. So ease was pretty much at the top of that list. And so as I was going through coach training, and then maybe a year or two in, when you're really starting to create your own frameworks, right? I created my own language frameworks. Everyone's heard this probably, like the word should, right? Stop shoulding all over yourself, right? It's fun, it's memorable. So I love that. But what do we do? What happens when we're saying should? When we say I should, I have to, or I can't, all of those are very shackling. We're feeling like we have zero freedom. We do not have the freedom, so we have to do this, or we can't do that, or we should do this. It makes us feel very unfree. And of course, I'm a freedom junkie, so I was like, I can't have any of that. So what are my options? So the substitutions for those things are choose to or choose not to. I will or I won't. Because we want to remind ourselves we are in a place of choice. We are free. Because when we're not feeling free, again, that fight or flight, right? Like, don't corner me, don't back me in, right? Don't tether me down. So I love having that as an option. A lot of times I'll be talking to clients even years after the fact. We always connect, and I'll hear them reframe this. They'll say, oh, I have to. I choose to do this because I don't choose what's going to happen if I don't, right? So instead of saying, oh, I can't come over because I have to pick up the kids, you can say, I choose not to come over because I know my daughter's really going to need me after I pick her up. So, instead of like, I'm tethered, no, I'm in a place of choice, and I'm choosing, to do something, which I'm usually choosing out of love, usually. So where when we feel like we can't or we have to, we don't feel love, we just feel tethered. And then other substitutions that I love is I want and I need. Those don't signal lack, or those signal lack, not tethering, right? So that's lack. And whenever you're signal with lack, not only is there not enough, but I'm not enough. That's the very thing that happens. We always go to that very bottom, biggest piece of baloney that is keeping our perception of our worth feeling unworthy. I'm not enough. There's not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough me. There's not enough money. There's not enough this. There's not enough that. I'm not enough. So I want and I need are really not good phrases that we want to keep in our language. So I tell people to try on this. I'd love. It feels different on our body. It has a whole different energy. So instead of like, oh my God, I need a nap, you say, I'd love a nap. It feels indulgent, and it makes you feel like maybe you are just worthy of a nap. And then you start thinking, how can I? Because that has a whole different energy. It is not signaling lack. I'd love is signaling worthiness. I'd love, I'm worth something. So it's a beautiful substitution. So instead of saying, oh, I really want, this thing, I'd love to have this thing. I'd love this thing. So to just make these little substitutions, we can really change how we feel inside. And this brings up something that you were talking about, and it's really about these water molecules like molecularly? What happens when we're using this positive language? So I'd love if you would talk a little bit more about that.
You bet. One of the reasons why I chose to put these declaration I am statements on the inside of the clothing is because of research that was done years ago by a Japanese scientist named Masaru Emoto. He's passed away. However, he took water crystals and put them in petri dishes and froze these water crystals. So they all came from the same source, right? He used scientific processes to do this. But what he did with these water crystals is he labeled the dishes that they were in with either positive or negative words. And he actually put the words facing in to the water crystals. So he froze them, and then he looked at these crystals under microscope. And with those negative words, the crystals were very distorted, every single one of them. But with positive words like love, peace, gratitude, the crystals were beautiful. And of course, he's published books, and you can see these crystals. You could probably even find it online. I know I have a book of his that has all of them in there. And when we think about us, we're about 70% water, aren't we? And so I thought, you know what? I want to create something again that is working while we sleep. So why not have pajamas that have these powerful statements? I am beautiful. I am worthy. I am loved, that touch our skin, that press against our skin. Now, the tops, you can certainly take them inside out and wear them and show other people who you are. In fact, purposefully, that wording goes forwards and backwards. So when you look in the mirror, you can read every other line. But when someone looks at you, they can read every other line. And again, remember, what we see and hear in our environment is impacting us. So if someone else reads, I am loved, I am beautiful, I am worthy, that's having a positive impact on their brain. So I think it's phenomenal, actually, the different types of things that we can draw from to understand how language works in our brain and how it transcends into our body, and then who we become as a result of that language.
Exactly. So now here we are with these I am statements.
Right.
I use them, interestingly, and with my clients and with myself. Instead of saying I am abundant, I say I am abundance. Instead of I am happy, I am happiness. And then every day in my gratitude journal, I use the 5-minute journal. That's it, because I don't want to journal all day long. But I can give you 5 minutes. It's a morning and evening practice, and I write in it every day. And there's an I am statement in there, and they show you at the beginning. You could say, I am making X amount of dollars, like some visualization you want to come true. But I don't use it that way. This is where I am saying these things that I am like, and every day I have 2 or 3 statements in there, and the last one's always I am love. Loved is beautiful, but I am love is to me even more. And so this is how, I'll ask my clients, like, what do you really, really want? I want peace. I want ease. I want freedom. Right? So I am peace. I am ease. I am freedom. And I have them spend 20 seconds feeling that feeling of each I am statement. 20 seconds. And then you go to the next one, and then you go to the next one. It's a really cool practice for actually feeling it, so that we can get those water crystals in our body to be beautiful, to make beautiful things. So that's kind of how I use I am statements personally, and how I help my coaching clients do the same thing.
And I love a good point that you brought up is that pondering, right? Thinking about it, feeling it, right? They're there, and we can say it, and it helps. But if we don't actually start to think about it, to allow that belief to come into our bodies and our minds, then it won't be as effective when we do take that time to really ponder and say it enough, repeat it. We know that repetition and intensity of emotion is really important in creating those neuronal changes that we want to make in our brains. And so, yes, pondering and thinking and dwelling upon those things is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's just leave our audience today with a very important fact, and I think we've given them some ways to do this. But the point is, it's very important to become aware of and reframe our negative thinking. Because like you said, these thoughts are running through our heads. They're 95% a day is repeating, and 80, what'd you say, 80 or 85% are negative. So not only, the first step is to become aware of them. And the last thing you should do is beat yourself up over having them, because then that's just another negative thought. So become aware, be a curious observer of your thoughts. Like, wow, isn't that interesting? I just had some negative self-talk. I just insulted myself, right? I don't think I'm smart enough. I don't think I'm pretty enough, right? So become aware. And then the second thing is to reframe, and reframing through contrast, through the antonym. What's the antonym of that, adjective that you just, or adverb, I guess it would be, that you just used? What is the opposite that you're saying? And just make a list, and then go through the list and just practice feeling how each one of those feels. And it's really hard at the beginning to believe that affirmations are true. You want them to be true, and you're like, oh, I'll fake it till I make it. But that doesn't really work. It's really about feeling them. And so if you're not sure it's true, if you're not really feeling it's true, then you can put a little beginning on it. You can say, I'm willing to believe that I am enough. I'm willing to believe that I am loved. I am willing to believe that I am worthy. So that's the beginning. And then imagine what it would feel like to feel worthy, to feel loved, to feel beautiful. And then sure enough, over time, they will go from affirmations to declarations.
Right.
Can you add to that, Kimberly?
Yeah, I would say, because I use this as part of my practice, I did it this morning, is that people think, okay, but one more thing I have to do, right? As you create these statements that you need for you, because all of it will be different for all of us, what we need for that day or for that time in our life. Remember that as you're thinking about these things, that you can add this to things that you already do. For example, I was doing my own I am statements this morning, and as I was making my bed, right? Because it's an easy thing to do and to think about. Now, I also get on my meditation mat at times and say those statements and think about them. But feel free to be creative and add these types of declarations and this wonderful thinking to things that you already have in place, right? The normal rote, maybe even mundane types of things that you do, where you can increase the energy of that task by thinking these types of thoughts.
Yeah, habit stacking. That's a really good point, because we really don't want to add one more thing to our lives for the most part. And it's too easy to forget. We're trying to create a new practice, but it's really easy to forget. So if we're always attaching it to some other habit, then that's a beautiful way to just get it going. And then if you can do it 21 days in a row, you'll probably keep doing it. So that's a beautiful thing. Awesome. So Kimberly, thank you so much for being a guest on Conversations Worth Your While. I would love if you would share with your audience. I know you've got a little gift for them. And then also, if they want to know more about these really beautiful pajamas, if you can, share a little bit of that with the audience today.
Absolutely. So for all of those listening, there is a page that we'll send you to, and I know, Linda, you're going to include it in the show notes. It is tokenclothingco.com. Again, that's tokenclothingco.com /pages/IAM. And there will be printables on that page that you can download and print, and you can write in the word that you need for that moment in your life, or you can actually type it in if you want to use the font that some of these are in, and then print it out and put that on your mirror, put that in your room, put it wherever you need to. Make 20 copies if you need to do that. But there's some options for really fun and pretty printables to start using this language. And then, of course, www.tokenclothingco.com is where you can go to learn more about Token Clothing, look at Pajamas with Purpose, look at our initiative, Pay It Forward with Pajamas, which is an initiative that we started this year, gift and note writing initiative to help women who have been sex trafficked. You have the opportunity to give them that gift. So there's a few things that you can see on the website. And Linda, I'll say this too. We actually, hopefully within the next month, we're going to have a pre-order sale for I Am t-shirts for women that are coming out. So come back and visit us, because we should have that up and going by the beginning of October, right in time for Christmas.
Oh, awesome. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Maybe people will print out all your affirmations and plaster them all over the wall. like I had done it, although mine was with paint and a paint pen. So yeah, beautiful. Well, that is great. Everyone, I will put all that information in the show notes so that you can click on it and get some pajamas, get some printables, learn about how to gift a set of pajamas. So once again, I am Linda Bucher, a speaker and a master certified life coach. And I have a question for you. Do you feel stuck? Do you feel unfulfilled? Do you feel out of alignment? Do you feel unworthy in your life or career? I can help you discover that you are the one that you've been waiting for. So let's talk about how to discover that, how to get you out of your own way and back into alignment. And you can do that by scheduling a free 20-minute clarity session with me at makeasplash.youcanbook.me. Well, that's our show. I'm so excited to have had Kimberly Wilkerson today as a guest. So come back next week, you lifelong learners. So we'll help you grow, and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't forget to click on the little bell that reminds you each time I release a new video. So I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with us today. And Kimberly, thank you so much for being a guest.
You're welcome. It's been great to be here. Thank you, Linda.
All righty, everybody, let's go forth. Let's discover our gifts. Let's make a splash that ripples positively. So until next time, please subscribe and make sure you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.